and welcome to the How to Market Your Horse Business podcast. I'm so glad you're joining me here today. Now, just in case for new friends, before we jump into all things equine assisted learning and how you may be able to incorporate it into your existing horse business even, I'll briefly introduce myself and then we'll dive in, all right? Now, as I said, my name is Denise Alvarez, and through my business, Storm Lily Marketing, I get to help dream-chasing horse business owners to see clearly through the marketing overwhelm so you can create a cohesive plan for your social media, your website, and your email marketing that will turn your online audience into your customers. Now, I do that specifically through one-on-one coaching, as well as website design and website copywriting, and education such as this podcast, and I have some online learning resources for equestrian entrepreneurs as well. My heart, friends, truly is to help you be out in the barn, out in the arena, doing what it is that you love to do. And that's why here on this podcast, you will get a mix of step-by-step strategies, essential how-tos, and entrepreneurial mindset shifts that will help you not only see what's possible for your horse business, but I'm also here to guide you through that process so you can make it happen. And that's exactly what I want to do today on this episode, because we're talking about the different ways that you could incorporate equine assisted learning into your horse business. Now, when you hear the words equine assisted learning, I'm just guessing that many of you start to think about therapeutic riding programs or programs that were created to serve a specific population or maybe veterans, at-risk youth, right? Counseling services, those types of things seem to be mixed in right now. And I get that because for me, when I first heard of today's guest, when I met her at Equine Affair, that was my first thought as well. And Storm Lily Ranch came to mind because, as many of you may know, Storm Lily Ranch is a nonprofit that does not exist yet. It's in its very infancy. I have a prayer team, and it will be a place for at-risk youth and survivors of sexual trauma to come and be around horses and experience safety and get outside and meet Jesus in a safe outdoor horsey ranch environment. And so when I heard equine assisted learning, that's what came to mind. But what many of us do not realize is that equine assisted learning is actually and can actually be a viable business model for horse businesses. Meaning it does not have to be in a nonprofit structure, while it could, but it doesn't have to be in order for it to be equine assisted learning. So for example, leadership development, team building experiences, personal development, wellness retreats, these are all different ways to incorporate equine assisted learning into your existing horse business or to start a new horse business or a new arm of your business that is centered around these ideas. Now, actually, if you look back at episode number 36, you will meet Katie Navarra, who was my podcast guest, and she has a leadership coaching program where she utilizes horses and equine assisted learning as a part of her business. And so this week, the guest I'm introducing you to has a program where she certifies people and businesses in equine assisted learning. Her name is Tracey Evans, and as you will hear from her, it's been a journey for her to get to this point, and she's not done building and evolving in her business yet. And I love where she's headed, and I think you will too. But in this interview, you're going to meet Tracey. You're going to hear how she went from being a corporate executive as vice president of marketing for American Express global teams to starting her own equine learning program, which, yes, was a huge shift. And you're going to hear how that happened and how that led her to creating a certification training center that helps people turn their passion for horses into a fulfilling career. Now, perhaps you've been considering adding something similar to your existing business. Maybe you've had an idea in the back of your head for something new. Maybe this is brand new to you and you're just open to new ideas and you want to hear what Tracey has to say. I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. You're going to enjoy hearing Tracey's story, how she's built up her business, and how equine assisted learning could possibly be something that you could incorporate into your own horse business. All right, so let's dive in. I can't wait for you to meet Tracey Evans. All right, Tracey, thanks so much for joining me here on the podcast. I'm so grateful for your gift of time.
Oh, well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited. So it was super fun to meet you in person at Equine Affair. And now we get to do this and do a deeper dive on all things equine assisted learning. But before we do that, I always like to give my guests a chance to really tell your story so that everybody can understand how you got to this place. You know, what's your background in horses, or for you, I know it's melded together. So I also know that can feel like a loaded question. So please know you're not having to rush through a 5 points of a lifetime of learning, but give us a good idea of kind of how you got started in the EAL realm and certification and where you're at now.
Sure. I did not grow up with horses. So I was about 32 when I took my first riding lesson after I finished my MBA and realized I had nothing but career. So I thought, a riding lesson, won't that be fun? And within 10 months, I owned my own horse, a 5-year-old thoroughbred off the track. So that's what took me into the natural horsemanship space, which is really the foundation for equine assisted learning and where I discovered the art of learning from my horse versus just teaching them all the time.
Yeah.
And in this particular clinic that I did, I learned my horse did not see me as a leader. And that's why we were struggling with some under saddle decisions. Like he was making more decisions than I was.
That's
So
an interesting way to put it.
it was, yeah, we had to have many a conversation and he just wasn't comfortable going where I necessarily wanted to go alone. So
Yeah.
I did this 45-minute clinic and I went from this high-headed 17-hand thoroughbred to a puppy dog that followed me everywhere. And within 5 days, we were galloping trails miles from my barn where we couldn't even walk to the outdoor ring alone. So it was just really transformational for me, but not only with my relationship with my horse, but also my understanding of how much I learned about myself through that process. And every principle that we were learning that they needed from a leader, all of the traits that he was looking for in me, communication, confidence, consistency, compassion, all of those things were the same things that I was looking to be as a leader and have as a leader for my team and what I wanted in a leader. And that's kind of where the bells went off for me. And I thought, wow, I'd much rather teach leadership this way than be in my marketing career. At the time, I was in telecommunications. I had done my MBA and was just climbing the corporate ladder because that's what I thought I wanted. And I not long after that, I took a demotion. I went to American Express and I thought, I'm going to explore this learning through horses thing. So I did a little bit of research and then my career took off. And the next 9 years was an absolute blur. By the time I was burnt out, I was the vice president of marketing for American Express global teams. I had Canada, Argentina, Mexico, and Puerto Rico under me. And I reported to New York. So I spent more time in a plane than in my barn. And I was really done. I really thought, I can do more from the outside. And that's where my husband and I started to put a strategy together on how I could exit this big job. Because as you can imagine, your lifestyle gets pretty wrapped up in that kind of career.
Yes.
And so we talked about moving to a farm and bringing our horses home. We had 2 that were boarded out. So it was quite a mortgage payment to keep the horses off site. And of course, all of my disposable income went to anything that they needed most of the time, as well as my portion of the household expenses. And we realized that in doing this kind of shift, it would just change how our financial structure in a big way because we were paying out so much and it was all after tax dollars. And once we could bring the horses home and we had a little boarding business to where we had a couple of boarders, it justified, so much more on the expense side and using tax income. So for those of you who are listening who are not yet an entrepreneur and don't know that you could ever be an entrepreneur, yes, you can. And you don't need to make as much as you think to get into it. So that was a real important thing for me, just to say, I don't have to replace this ridiculous income in order to do what I love. And how can I do that? Now, I am the type of person that was going to do that anyway, because I'm just very driven that way and I don't do anything small. but it certainly gave me that door opening to allow me to explore doing something I really wanted to do. And it was interesting for me. I'm a big believer that once you jump, your net appears and your path appears. And that truly happened for me. Once I had decided that that was something I wanted to explore and do, we already moved the horses home. Within a few months, American Express did a restructure and I got the option to take a package. And that's where I jumped and went, okay, yeah, let's do that. I don't want another job here. I want to go. So I was able to do that. And it gave me a bit of runway to start my business the following year. And that's when Dream Wins was born. So for me, I had to find a certification because I knew how to teach leadership. I had a lot of leadership and mentoring experience, and that was really a passion point for me, building teams and high performing leaders. And I knew what my horse had taught me about leadership, but there was a big gap for me. I'm like, what am I going to do with these people in the arena? Like, how do I structure a program so that I get and create the depth of programming that would allow me to build a business and generate a lifestyle and an income? And that's when I started the search for my certification.
Okay, so tell me this. Well, first, okay, I appreciate you giving that because I know, like I said, I know it feels like a long story because you're like, there's a lot of life lived within that, but it's so important for people to listen and understand where your expertise come from, what your heart comes from with all of these things. So I appreciate you taking time to share that. I do have a question for you. At what point did you even realize that that could be a business that, doing the coaching alongside a horse, like you experienced it personally.
Right.
And then was there a point that you experienced it again in terms of a corporate realm, or how did you realize that could be a business?
It was. So when we brought our horses home, every year I would bring my team for a team offsite, and they would typically come to my house and do the offsite, and then we would go do something fun. And so this particular year, of course, I had my farm and my horses home, and I did not, by the way, have EAL horses, but I had horses that were not prone to killing people. So I was like, we're doing it. So I actually purchased a few exercises online and thought I'm going to run a team building program. And I had a friend who was keen to see how it worked. So she helped me out for that. And it was really a turning point for me because at the time, even though I was exploring this idea, I still thought it would be more of a part-time thing. I'd get a job and then I'd be able to dabble in this. And so when I brought my team back and we were doing this exercise, I remember walking into the house that night and said to my husband, I am not looking for another job. Like, I have got to do this. This was so impactful. And the feedback we got was amazing. And my team were not horse people, they were city people. So I really tested it out with a tough group where it wasn't necessarily going to be in their comfort zone or their wheelhouse to be spending an afternoon with horses. And they were just so amazed at the aha moments and the profound learning and awareness they got about their own style and what worked and what didn't. And so it became, I don't know, I can't even tell you, it was like a switch went off in me and this was what I was doing. And I've often been asked, like, how did you know it would work? And I said, I can't even tell you that. I just can tell you, I never dreamed it wouldn't. I never thought it wouldn't. Just proceeded as if, and like, this is my job now, and this is what I'm doing, and I need to get this certification to be able to provide the kind of programs I want to provide. And I was just off, gone, done, doing it.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Okay. So I will quickly stop and say, I jumped us head first. Define EAL. For those who are listening, obviously we know we've talked like it's booming and, there are stories in every equestrian magazine at some point about the services, but it also can be a very broad scope. So as far as you're concerned, define EAL for us.
I like to keep it real simple. So equine assisted learning, the way I define it, is that it's an experiential approach to teaching life skills with horses or through horses. So in our scope, it's a learning based program. It's about building skills, self-awareness, confidence, all of those things. It's not therapy. That's how it's different. How we differentiate it is not a therapeutic model necessarily. It can be. You can apply it that way. Particularly our certification can play on both sides if you're already a therapist. But from a learning perspective, it's really it is broad because it can be used for anybody. There's nobody I've met that can't benefit from this type of work. But it is really more of a learning based program. So it's a really important distinction, therapy versus equine assisted learning, because lots of people think they want to get into therapy. But if you're not a trained, mental health professional, a certified therapist, it's really not the space to play in. So when we think about therapy, therapy should be run by somebody who is a mental health professional, certified psychotherapist, social worker, counselor, etc. And they are trained to delve into past trauma, really dig deep into those mental health challenges that the clients are facing, which is wonderful, wonderful work. With equine assisted learning, we take people as they arrive and help them build the skills to thrive. So I may work in the space of, post-traumatic stress, for example, but I am not delving into that stress. I am taking folks and just helping them to find a new way to behave, a new way to process and build skills that allow them to move forward, build strong relationships, and have a more productive, effective life. They can choose a different response in many cases.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so I'll go back to your story. So then, because this is not the end, okay, then you started your business and then tell us a little bit more about that journey.
Yeah. So I started my business wholly focused on corporate team building because I figured that's who I am. This is how I've always been trained. It's what I know best. It's where my passion and my experience really intersect. But quickly as my business started to grow, we had demand from other areas. So a lot of people wanted to bring their kids. And I had a couple of folks that were working in the business with me they were teachers and educational assistants. So they were really keen to work with kids. So we launched our kids program. And then mothers were like, how come they get all the fun? So then we launched women's programmings. And then they were like, I need to bring my husband. And so then we had date nights and it sort of rolled from there. And then we did a lot of custom work. We did custom date nights. We did sports teams, a lot of team building type things. We worked with networking associations, that type of organization, as well as all our corporate business that came as well. So it became quite broad. And in 2016, I was just so passionate about what I'd been able to do. And I knew so many people that would love to do this kind of work in other different realms and in serving people that I couldn't serve or didn't want to serve. There were lots of, requests for special needs and really young children's programs and just things that were not in my wheelhouse and that I didn't want to expand into. And I thought this has got to grow. Like I can't serve all the people that want to be served. And this is just my community, imagine the world kind of thing. So I partnered with the certification body that certified me, Cartier Farms. They developed this amazing curriculum of exercises that they've tested through research. And that's really what brought me to their certification was the validity and credibility that they had. They were really pioneers in this space. And they were looking to expand east. And lo and behold, I was east. So we partnered up and we've been obviously good partners ever since it's almost 8 years now that we've been running this together. And when I joined Cartier, I also developed the Alumni Association that's part of this, the alumni group that is that keeps us all connected post-graduation. Okay. So I thought that was really a big piece for me is how do we help each other grow? I'm a real big believer that all boats rise with the tide. So how do we help everybody bring their business up? So they're not just putting plaques on the wall and saying, hey, I'm a certified EAL facilitator and I've done nothing with it. That breaks my heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where that went. And then we've been certifying ever since and had a really good business up in Ontario. We had lots of top 500 organizations come through. We've worked with Google, Cisco, CIBC, number of banks, of course, Amex as well. And some sports teams and a lot of schools. We got some really good school business up there. So we were a busy center. And in 2020, of course, COVID put a little bit of a wrench into that. Although the certification was still doing very well, we couldn't run our large programs. We would do typically schools and corporate teams of up to 30 people, and that was kind of put on hold for some time. And through all of that, it gave us time to reflect, do different things, and kind of prepare our vision for the farm once the pandemic was over. And we started to realize that we had always had dreams of Dreamwind South. We're not winter people, despite being Canadian for 50 odd years. We don't winter well. I've never wintered well. And we talked about Dreamwind South since the first winter we had horses home. And my husband said, if you could do it anywhere, where would it be? And I said, North Carolina. And he said, really? We'd never been together. I'd been as a kid. And I said, yeah. I said, it's paradise down there. And they just built an equestrian center. I feel like the Carolinas have always been home to me. It's where we vacationed every year. And I never wanted to go home as a kid. And I'd love to return and never go home again. So my husband's a little adventurous. So he's
He
like, oh,
is. I love this. I love it.
contractor, so he can do his work anywhere. And he had a very good business in Toronto, but he was like, I'm sick of driving 90 minutes to and from work. And we were ready for a change. And we sold our dream farm. We had built that farm and absolutely loved it, had wonderful memories up there, amazing friends, family, and just decided to take our dreams to the next level, and found a path for our visas, and got our visas and moved down here. So we've
Oh
been
my
here for
goodness. I love your story,
the
Tracey.
ground.
Okay. How long have you been in North Carolina?
2 years. So we came down in 2022, and then my final visa approval was January of last year. So we were still building the facility. So our official launch here was really October. We ran a couple of courses, but our official launch of the building here and arena, et cetera, was in October of last year.
Oh my goodness. I love it. So you're still doing the certification,
Yeah. Yes,
right?
the certification, and focusing now on corporate team building. So we've had a couple of
Okay.
great organizations come through with Coca-Cola and GSK Pharmaceuticals, which was amazing. And we're now venturing into the retreat space. So one thing that I didn't have in Ontario was a location that people were drawn to. It wasn't like a destination.
Okay.
Being try on North Carolina and Western North Carolina with the Blue Ridge Mountains and all the things around us, we are truly in a destination area. So to be able to attract people from around the country and around the world was really exciting to us. So we have a few, we're building out our Airbnb opportunities here. We have a cabin, and we built a loft in this space as well, and really focusing on how do we bring ladies together, both from a leadership perspective. So I would love to work with corporate executives, and we're building that program right now for end of September. And then also wellness programs. I mean, we just never take time for ourselves. So how can our horses help people reconnect with who they are, and really focus on that self-care, but also that self-discovery and self-awareness? What do we want out of life, and how do we want to move forward? I'm all about moving forward.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm thrilled. I'm excited to watch what you guys do with that, with the retreat space. Yeah. That's so cool. Okay. I love that. So the reason, after having talked to you, Equine over here, I learned some of your story, but this is super fun to hear the full gamut, was because I think that my listeners who are equestrian entrepreneurs have been hearing about EAL, and honestly, most people hear it from a realm of a nonprofit. Like from most of the stories that I hear, and honestly, I think I shared with you some about Storm Lily Ranch, like the direction we're going. It is going to be a nonprofit. But what I loved is that you had looked at it and said this can actually be a for-profit business. Also, it can go
Absolutely.
both ways, right? Do you find that people have a hard time kind of deciphering that or even exploring that because they thought it only had to be like in this nonprofit therapeutic realm?
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest difference that I'm noticing between the US and Canada. In Canada, equine therapy was there, of course. Therapeutic riding was more of a focus, and then EAL just blossomed. So we kind of didn't have this big mainstay of equine therapy happening everywhere. Whereas here, I feel that's a real hurdle. I think people just instantly think therapy, and that's not kind of the only application.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing that I'm trying to work on in terms of educating the market, because absolutely, there's therapeutic value to it. And I always say, I'm not a therapist. When people come to me and we're doing wellness programs and things like that, I'm not a therapist. This is not a therapy program, but I cannot be held responsible for my horses practicing without a license all day long. There
That's
is
awesome.
absolute therapeutic value in the presence of
Yes.
horses, no
Yes.
question. But I think for me, obviously, because I wanted to work with corporate teams, nonprofit just didn't make sense. No one's donating to that. Um,
Yeah.
And we do have graduates that also run nonprofits. So when I'm working with graduates or folks that are interested in the EAL space, I always say, look at the clients that you want to serve. If you're working in children's programming, it might make sense that you go the nonprofit route, because there are lots of organizations that donate to children's efforts. And so for that, it's really a decision around who are you serving and where will it make the most sense. There are other decision factors when you think about nonprofit in that you don't really own your own business. So you have a board that runs your business. And so that's another consideration, which for me, that's not going to work. So just knowing who I am. And I found other ways to work in that space. So for example, I partner with a nonprofit camp and we send horses to an island every summer to work with children of parents with PTSD and children who are going through grief. So in theory, it's more of a therapeutic kind of domain, but we're not doing therapy. It's all about building those skills, perseverance, resilience and confidence, et cetera, having come through all those. And with the kids with parents with PTSD, it's dealing with emotion. It is a little bit about dealing with people who are hot in emotion and how do we find our voice and help contribute positively to all of that environment and protect ourselves. So there's those two things, but I'm not a nonprofit, but they are. So they pay a for-profit organization and I get to still go into that space and benefit from their nonprofit status, if you will. So
Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Do that. I also have graduates who self-sponsorship. So they're not a nonprofit, but they work in veteran programs and first responder programs for PTSD. And they go out to their local community and businesses donate. So they say, sponsor and we'll put your banner around the arena and we'll promote you in our social media, et cetera. And you're helping a great cause. And so local businesses will say, sure, I know I'm not getting a tax receipt, but I'm doing good things and I'm getting marketing in return. So they want to support her program. So she runs them for free for those folks, but is paid through sponsorship. So there's lots of different interesting ways to structure the business. Obviously, there's big opportunity in the nonprofit space, but there's also big opportunity in the for-profit space. And, we were working with schools. We didn't need to be a nonprofit to work with high schools and public schools, et cetera. So it's just kind of figuring out who you want to serve and what business structure is going to make the most sense for you for success. I have some who run both, that would blow my mind. All the power to you.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. You kind of just blew my mind. I'm like, okay. Right? I want to learn more about that. That's so interesting. Yeah. Okay. So here's what I would love. Say, I just want to pretend like you are having coffee with somebody who is me right now and saying, okay, Tracey, I've been hearing about EAL. I am trying to figure out if it's for me. I have an existing horse business, right? So there are people that have a lesson business already, or have, a bodywork business. Like there are different horse business owners that are still saying, I believe this works. I didn't realize I could possibly incorporate it into my existing business. What are the things I need to know, or what are the questions I should be asking as I make that decision?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first question you have to ask is, do you love people? And because we, as horse people and as animal lovers, that those things don't always go hand in hand, right? That, we all love our horses. We love training horses potentially. We love spending time with our horses. But that doesn't always mean we want to do that to help people. So that is first and foremost, just being real with yourself and saying, do I care to help people? And there's nothing wrong with that if you don't. There are people out here that have to be working that need the animal welfare side of things and put all your energy in that. That's amazing. No judgment. I like horses a lot better than some people too. Get it? But if you're a diehard trainer and you're all about the horse and you really, your people connections are not what you would consider something like this as a perfect job, then don't worry about it. You've got other skills and other things that you should pursue and advocate on the horse side of things, because we need that as well. But if you love people and you really see an opportunity to create change in people and want to help people evolve and change, then this is a great path. This is, when I worked for American Express, I got people to use their credit cards. So I helped people drive debt. That was my job for 9 years. And I love that company. Please don't take this the wrong way. But, when I think about personal fulfillment, that wasn't my passion to help people drive debt. I was good at it. I was also good at it for myself. Like I do have, it's definitely somewhere my passion and intersected as well. But it is not, it was not that fulfilling job that I always dreamed I would have. I really wanted to contribute to a greater good, I guess. And sometimes I didn't realize it because in my corporate pursuits, I was quite egocentric in many ways. I was hunting money and title and all the things coming out of MBA. And this has really changed me and helped me unlock who I really was. And so there's a lot of personal growth that can happen when you do this type of work as well, which is pretty special. But yeah, if you have a real desire to help people and love horses and want to work with horses, it's the perfect combination. And the nice thing about it is you can, you might love children and want to help children. You might have a background in special needs. You can focus in these different areas and really fulfill what is important to you. You don't have to necessarily be all things to all people. I did away with a lot of different types of programs because I found while I loved them in the moment, they depleted me. I was
Mm.
exhausted after. Whereas I can run a 5, 6, 8 hour corporate session and want to talk about it to everybody in the room for the next 4 hours when I'm done. Like I'm just so excited afterwards. And other ones would be like, okay, we can't talk for a minute. I just need to because
Yeah,
there's a lot of
that
energy that
makes
has to
sense.
go in it. Yeah. And it's
Yes.
just kind of where I connect and where my natural flow is really good.
Mhm.
So thinking about that, like who would you want to work with and who would you want to help? And if that kind of aligns with an EAL space, that's great. Then that's a great opportunity. The other thing to think about is, what is your current situation? So our graduates don't all have horses. They don't all have their own facility. But if you already have a boarding barn or you already have a lesson program, odds are you have a herd of horses that are working for you currently, especially in a lesson barn. And odds are you have a field of horses that are not any longer sound to ride. And so you have these lovely animals that you're doing right by, but they're on your feed bill and they're in the
Yeah.
pasture and they're bored likely because they've used to been having work and they've been at attention for so long. So we have found a lot of lesson barns really find that as a great option to add to their barn. They can run them in off hours when it doesn't have to necessarily be during lesson times, especially if you do corporate or you do small business programs or something like that that can run in the middle of the day when a lot of your clients are working potentially. And that allows your horses to have this amazing career beyond riding that keeps them mentally sound, physically sound, and all of those things. So that's been a nice fit. The other area we've seen a good fit is therapeutic riding centers, where their focus has always been on physical and cognitively challenged clients. And it's a pretty narrow field, and they're doing it through their nonprofit space.
Yeah.
But then being able to expand to EAL, open up the doors to all of these people that would not really have been connected to their organization in the past and provide programming for a broader customer base that then helps fund their nonprofit efforts on their therapeutic side. So we're seeing a lot of that happening, especially in Canada right now. Like lots of them are getting in on it. And then lastly, for actual nonprofits and charity rescues, if you're rescuing horses that have the right qualities. You can't work with horses that are scared or, have a lot of emotional baggage themselves. Oftentimes that can be a little bit risky or dangerous. But if you have really nice horses that you're in a sanctuary situation, it's a great opportunity again to kind of help, supplement your bills and get them working and help people at the same time. So we see a little bit of that as well with people doing that. I am always cautious with rescues because you don't necessarily know what that horse has been through, and you don't want to push a button that is a trigger in the middle of a program, that type of thing. So you have to really know your horses. But there's certainly different opportunities there. But those are the questions I would ask myself. Like, and what am I passionate about? I think number one, if you're passionate about helping people and you love horses, what else would you rather do with your time?
Yeah. Okay. I love these are such good questions. And for those listening, of course, I'm going to have these questions on the show notes and highlighted this conversation so you can go back and review them because they're so important for any of our decisions as entrepreneurs, right? To ask ourselves some really important questions and really evaluate all the options and make an informed decision. Tell me this in terms of certification. So for those listening saying, okay, do I really need to be certified to be able to offer this at my barn? Or can't I just use what I've learned in my past, 20 years around horses and just invite people to come in and teach them? Is a certification required? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. You absolutely can put your shingle up today and start running programs. There's no governing body. There's no, overseer that's requiring certification in this space. What I would certification. And there are so many amazing certifications out there. Like there's so much choice, it can be a little bit overwhelming. But what you want to think about when you're looking for certification is really seeing, what's the validity of that program? What program does that program suit the modality for your client? When I was looking, I needed something that corporate teams could sink their teeth into. So the objective based curriculum that my certification offers was bar none the way to go, and research backed. So it just came with a ton of credibility and was much more structured. There are more intuitive programs out there that really lend themselves to kind of women's wellness and personal development programs. So those are things that you have to think about: is will your customers buy it? And then the other piece of it, of course, is it flexible? So I chose mine because it was a great fit for corporate. Well, lo and behold, I can use it and apply it in a wellness format. I can brief it and debrief it and adapt it to whatever audience I want to work with. So that flexibility was, I didn't know it at the time, but very important. And then looking at what value is provided. So there are the other benefits of certification is if you go where there's a high value certification, hopefully you would get a curriculum of exercises that can be plug and play, because that just takes a lot of stress off of you. It becomes more muscle memory and you can focus on your client. And it works. You would hopefully get some additional coaching and support. So a lot of the programs, and mine is, technically a 5-day program. We do 3 mornings online, 3 days in person. That's not a lot of time. I don't expect anybody to walk out of my room an expert in the moment. And
Yeah.
we a lot of hands-on to build confidence, but then we have a really integrated coaching program that follows. And we have, 3 months of intensive weekly calls and one-on-one time. And then you have lifetime support through our alumni group and with me directly. There's never been a graduate that's called, emailed, or texted and not gotten an immediate or as soon as possible response from me with whatever support they needed. And I think having that support is really important, because we all come from different backgrounds, and most horse people don't have that business side of it, which is why we added the marketing and business development piece to our certification. Because if without that, there is no business. You have a hobby if you're lucky. So
Exactly.
you have
Yeah.
to fill that room. And
Yeah.
then lastly, are they practicing? Like find that certification that's actually practicing, so that it's a proven model that people will come to and learn from. B, they're doing what you're doing, so that go to someone who can teach you, that is in the trenches. I always joke with my clients, I'm like, I'm right there with you. I'm starting over. I'm new. Nobody knows me down here, so I am testing all the channels that you're going to need to test, and I'm getting all of my ducks in a row, just as you're going to get your ducks in a row. So being able to learn from somebody who's in it with you is, I think, really important, and testing out some of those programs that you want to run.
Yeah, that's such a good word. And I would imagine certification builds trust, right? I mean, definitely there's something about word of mouth and testimonials that builds trust. But especially when you're just kind of shooting in the dark, and like you said, it's something new. When they see certified, it gives them something to go research, go check out that website, and the person that's making the decisions will kind of lean into that a little bit more. So it's important.
And when you
Yeah.
think about the clients you're serving, they're going to look for that. Particularly, you want to work in the youth program or special needs, sector. Those parents want to know who's going to be working with
Yeah.
children. When I'm dealing with corporate teams and school boards, they want to know that you know your thing and you're actually a credible source of information and programming, and safe for them to come to, and getting the right value for what they want to do. So it does provide a lot of that. So there's your credibility, there's having a modality and a method. I guess I said
Hmm.
that was the gap for me, and be able to plug and play this curriculum. I was like, and now I have a program. Fantastic. I have what I know. I have what I thought I know. And now I have everything to make it
Fill in the gaps.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because to your point, because anybody could potentially offer it at any time, which is a really good thing, but also could potentially, let's be honest, be a dangerous thing for somebody who's looking to like make that decision about, how do I know who to trust? Then that kind of helps as far as marketing. That's going to help your marketing, because as they're looking at who they're going to choose and they see the certification, for sure. And friends, just so you know, like I'm not here to promote Tracey's program. I'm just talking and just in general. Like I don't want anybody to think that I invited you on here just specifically for that reason, because it really is just this idea
Mhm.
of building an EAL program and then leaning into the fact that certification matters and it can really help you and be so, so valuable.
Absolutely. And I tell everybody who approaches me about certification, here's what we offer. Do your research. Like it
Yeah.
has to be a good fit. I don't want anybody coming into my certification that isn't really thinking this is going to be what makes their program sing. If it doesn't align with their structure, values, or what they're trying to create, that's okay. We need to click too. I'm going to be your mentor and trainer and all of those things. And there's so much opportunity out there. There's so many different certifications. So definitely do your research and see what fits for you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that kind of leads into my next question. So you can add to this. My next question was going to be for those listening who are intrigued and thinking, okay, there are more opportunities for equine assisted learning than I thought. What would be their first step? And I would guess you're going to say do their research, but is there something else you would say?
Yeah, call me. Call me. Attend one of my webinars. I do a free webinar where I talk about the industry and the opportunities in the industry. And I also then kind of go through this checklist on how to research the different ones. I touch on how some of them are different. There are so many well-respected programs. Path International is amazing. There's E3A. There's a bunch up in Canada as well. There's Equimotional down here. There's lots of them. Athena, Herd, all of them. They're great programs. So I touch on a few of those just to share kind of how they differ, because each one has kind of a different bent to it. As I said, ours is very structured and objective based and research driven. Some of them are much more intuitive and much more about that horse heart connection, and it's a little more free flowing. So just knowing where you fit in all of that and what's going to feel good for you and work for your client, most importantly, is really important. So that research piece is really start there for sure. It's not get an EAL horse. Everybody wants to run out and get an EAL horse.
Oh, that's a good word.
First, so that you know what you're looking for. Like we teach that as well, how to choose a good EAL horse. So I'm often finding myself saying, slow down, because we're going to get to that. And I want
Yeah.
you to really make sure you're evaluating your horses really carefully, because that's a huge liability if you choose wrong. So making sure they know how to choose that horse, right? So just things like that. You really kind of want to get into your certification before you start making those bigger decisions on everything, because your certification should help you guide that.
Yeah. Okay. That's such a good word. Okay. All right. We've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything else, Tracey, that you're saying, okay, this one point I haven't made, but it's so important for those who are considering EAL or just kind of, dipping their toe in the water? Is there anything else they should know or you'd like to share?
I would say my only thing I want to leave you with is, if it's been in your heart and it's something you're really interested in, but you're not sure if you can do it, just start. Just start. Like take one step, do some research, call some people, go to a program, try a program out, something of that nature. Because as I said, I was not an entrepreneur. I was not a horse person my whole life. I wasn't born into this career. It is absolutely possible. It is 150,000% fulfilling. If it's what your heart tells you want to do, find a way. And if I can help, I would love to help. And if I can put you in touch with other people that help, I will be happy to do that as well. Because I think one of my other passion points beyond EAL is it breaks my heart to see people sitting in jobs and roles that do not light them up.
Mm,
And sat in an office for 9, 10, well, 15 years before discovering this. I thought, wow, I could have rode that to retirement and had a really nice, healthy retirement, but I would rather do this and feel like I never need to retire. Like this is way more fun than just putting in time. And that putting in that kind of time, it affects your health, it affects your mental well-being, all of those things. When you're doing what you love, you will come alive, and it'll be the best time you spend in your life, no question. So don't be afraid. Just find your passion and live it. That's my final word.
I love that. I love that. And let me just encourage you, which I should have said this when you were telling your story, but I literally just finished doing an interview with somebody before you and I got on. I was on someone else's podcast, and she and I were talking about how every point in our journey is preparation for the next step. And I can see that in your story. So even though you're like, oh, I spent this time, and it was stressful and all these things, but what you learned there, the connections you made there, is proof that you are being prepared for the next step ahead of you. So I love that. So
Absolutely.
just wanted to encourage you with that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I don't regret one step along the way. I never do. I never have regrets. For me, it's always a stepping stone. And I wouldn't be
Yeah.
where I am today if I had not done that schooling and those careers. And, my corporate business has been so successful because I walked in their shoes and I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's what I always say too to people who come to me about EAL. They're like, well, I don't know this and I don't know this. And I'm like, but you know what you know,
Yeah.
life experience is what you pour into these programs. And it doesn't have to be my life experience. It has to be your life experience. Your programs are your programs. So
That's so good. Yeah. So
all have gifts and something to share. So this is a beautiful avenue to do that.
yeah. So for those of you listening, let that be your encouragement as you walk away too. So even if you are not thinking EAL, but you just came here to hear the story and learn from Tracey and hear about her experiences in your own businesses, let this encourage you too, that you are specifically where you are for a purpose. The things that are behind you are preparing you for what's ahead of you. So good.
Absolutely.
Tracey, thank you so much. Now, I would love for you to tell everybody where they can find you. Of course, I'll have the links on the show notes and on social and all the things. But for those that are pulling out their phones right now and they want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Easy peasy. I am on Facebook, DreamWinds EAL or DreamWinds Equine Assisted Learning Center. Instagram, same thing, DreamWinds EAL. And our website is dreamwinds.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, of course, I'll share all those links. And thank you so much again for sharing so generous today. I appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate your time, and it's always nice to connect. So thanks for everybody who listened to the end.
All right, friends, I hope that you enjoyed that conversation with Tracey as much as I did. I really appreciate her encouragement at the end to just go for it, whatever it is that's on your heart, and to appreciate the journey that has gotten you to where you are. And I also want to encourage you because I know this is a new way of thinking about equine assisted learning and how it could work in your business, and is it a profitable business model? And so I want to encourage you because I know that many of you have talked to me about adding different pieces to your existing business model and how you could do that and make some additional income for your business. So in addition to this idea of equine assisted learning, I know that one of the questions I often get is about memberships, that many of you are saying, Denise, I'm also considering adding a membership model to my business. What does that look like? How do I get started? And so I want to make sure that you know I have a free resource that'll help you in that process, going from scratch to launching your membership. So if you head to stormlily.com/membership, then you'll get my free guide for online memberships for horse business owners. Let me say that better. My free beginner's guide to online memberships for horse business owners. All right. It really is going to walk you through the step-by-step for getting your membership off the ground and helping you to build recurring revenue in your business to serve more people and horses. And so I wanted to make sure that you know that because I know that as you evolve, that membership is something that many of you are adding to your horse business. So I do have that free guide available. stormlily.com/membership, or if you just head to the show notes, because I've got all the links there where you can connect with Tracey as well. If you go to stormlily.com/143 for episode 143, I'll have the link there to this free guide, and I will have all the ways that you can connect with Tracey as well. Because if you're thinking you want to go that direction, and that's a way that you want to expand your existing horse business, then I want to make sure that you can get in touch with Tracey and learn from her, check out her free webinar that she talked about, and see if that may be something that is for you. Because as I said in the beginning of this episode, my heart is to give you all the practical help that you need to market your horse business well, to clarify your messaging so that you can connect with the right people that will become your customers so you can do more of what you love to do in this beautiful horse world we all get to be a part of. Thanks so much for joining me here today, friends. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you back here soon with a new episode.